time for us to retake our own health responsibility and be better stewards of our body, and to redesign our lives in an authentic way. But it takes a little bit of wellness practitioners and the medical professions to embrace and stick their necks out and change their dialogue slightly to becoming more encouraging and educating, and get the empath back.
That which you most need to find is found where you least want to look. Welcome to the Sought and Found podcast, your gateway to the world of holistic health and wellness.
Has Western medicine lost its way of treating patients with an empathic and humane approach? This is the Sought and Found podcast, and I'm your host, Gareth Catesy. Each week, we will delve into the mysteries of the world of holistic health. My goal is to bring you thought leaders and practitioners in the holistic health space to empower you on your own health and wellness. Please remember to subscribe so we can grow our audience and get bigger guests onto the show. This week, we spoke to Dr. Ryall Hamlyn. He's a general practitioner with more than 38 years of experience in the Ballito area of Southern Africa. We talk about the contrasting world of Western medical practices today, how they don't often treat people with respect and kindness and empathy, how it's lost its way of treating customers and clients and patients like people. We delve into Eastern ways of looking at health, holistic practices. Ryall explores the breath, diet, and even removing toxic people from your own life. So I hope you enjoy this podcast, and I hope it's enlightening of how you can take agency and power over your own health and wellness. Please enjoy. Thank you.
Well, Western medicine is the traditional doctor with its structures. It's the family practitioner. It's the GP, we call it in my country. And the approach that's predominantly pharmaceuticals, management, a little bit of lifestyle management, and a journey towards getting well with a very strict, rigid, perhaps not collective, not so open-minded approach. Eastern medicine is something which I believe Westerners have only started to embrace in the last maybe 10, 15 years. For me, it started about that length of time ago. But it was always considered that in days gone by, holistic medicine was a little bit strange and unscientific, and there was no value in it, and there was no proof. Herbal medicine, well, what do herbs do? Marijuana, for example, that's pot. Then things like meditation, Eastern ways of thinking, ways of actually embracing spirituality. For example, your shamans and your traditional healers in Africa. That was really considered to be not really embraced at all. In actual fact, traditional healers were never embraced into the consulting office of a qualified medical practitioner. I can even remember the days of homeopathy, where we consider that to be taboo and in some circles, maybe from the devil. Chiropractors, doctors, qualified, were not even recognized as a physiotherapist was fine, but a chiropractor was considered to be, in my early days, 20 years ago, they had no real place to play. And then when it comes to natural herbs and natural plants and the place of, whether there's a place for that to heal you, it's never really been introduced into the Western medicine culture. Or the ways, it's never been introduced as a menu of part of our healthcare management. Western medicine is pretty much strictly treating a condition, pharmaceutically encouraged. Pharmaceutically, it's helpful. There's big pharma that helps us, and there's evidence-based medicine, trials that prove that this product does that and reduces cardiovascular risk or risk of heart attacks or strokes by X number of percent. And then you get the patient, who is the person who's the center of the reason for the disease, with the ailment, with the lack of real reason to embrace their lives other than rely on a pharmaceutical or medicine and rely on the doctor, who's pretty much been the prescribing practitioner, the method, the way, and that's it. And it's taken away the naturalness of how a person would embrace their own health and use their common sense, look at their life. I'm going to use an example. A patient of mine would come in and I would look at them and I'd say, my God, what's happened to you in the last couple of years? You're grotesque, you're huge. Well, you don't say that in Western medicine because you could get sued for that. But no, if you've got love and compassion and caring and you understand this person, you'll say it in love and you'll say, hey, things got right, not right, things are bad. Let's just start a new journey of wellness and let's get you involved here. Let's be a better steward of your own body and your health and what you eat and what you put in, who you associate with. So Western medicine is very much a traditional doctor in a consulting office with a receptionist who uses a file, who uses booking, who's pretty impersonal. The doctors compete with each other because some doctors are faster with their consultations, some charge more, some charge less. In the prescribed healthcare systems of national health, of healthcare insurances, there's a capping on what you may prescribe and what you may not. There's competitive rivalry within the pharmaceuticals as to what can come on the market and what price can be prescribed, and there's lack of freedom, there's lack of the art of the practitioner's gone. It's the time, it's the number of minutes that you've got to try and conclude a consultation. And it's impossible to embrace the holistic way of delving deeper into why this disease has ever happened. Why is this man who's become obese during COVID and inactivity, and he's now diabetic? And why has this ever happened? And you could quite easily prescribe him a medicine, pull yourself together, go to a dietitian and fragment him in all sorts of directions and confuse him and tell him this drug, that. And when he comes for his follow-up prescriptions, it's like, oh, it's the name, I can't remember, it begins with a D, and or it's a blue pill, or where's the onus and responsibility on the patient to look after their own health? Western medicine fails us by allowing us to become uninformed on our own bodies and how we look after our own bodies, and rather relying on what's out there. We could go into nutrition. Nutrition looks beautiful. The shops are displayed with amazing colored fruits and vegetables, and you bring all that home and you pop it onto your dining room table and lovely bowl of fruit, but I trust you, a fruit fly will not touch that apple or that peach. It won't even go it won't even go rotten. It'll take ages. Why? It's full of chemicals. Fruit flies don't eat chemicals. And there's the nutrients in there. Beautiful bowl of breakfast served, some mango and some berries and some apples and peaches. Taste it. It's lost its nutrients. It's lost its taste. The nutrition's not in the food like it used to be in the old days, the good old days. How do we exercise? How do we live? How do we breathe? Where do we source our food? These are all very, very important to give us a holistic way of living and designing. It's time for us to retake our own health responsibility and be better stewards of our body, and to redesign our lives in an authentic way. But it takes a little bit of wellness practitioners and the medical professions to embrace and stick their necks out and change their dialogue slightly to becoming more encouraging and educating, and get the empath back. That's why we're healthcare practitioners, is we have heart and soul. We have intuition, which we develop over the years. I think we've lost that. Western medicine's lost that. The ancient healers will sit and think and contemplate and discern and meditate and spend time. And the whole art of communication in the form of energy and intuition, and the doctor sitting back and listening quietly and hearing what the patient's got to say, is lost. I think the average time that a patient listens speaks in a doctor's consultation is about 7 seconds before the doctor interrupts. I'm to blame. I mean, I'm ADHD, so you can imagine how hard that is to listen. But your ancient Eastern healers will sit there and they will take it in and they will hear what your real ailments are. And the origin of dis-ease, I think we're not embracing as Western medical practitioners. We've lost that, yeah. It's been a big change over the last decades. I've been in practice for 38 years. I graduated in 1984 from Stellenbosch University in South Africa. An amazing training that I had, I think one of the best in the world. South African doctors are known to be well trained, but also experience and exposure to disease and to different cultural practices and different environments and different socioeconomic classes. But from where we were in a ward round in medical school with a dietitian, an occupational therapist, a physiotherapist, a 4th year, a 5th year, a student intern, a 6th year, a junior registrar, a senior registrar, a junior specialist, a professor, an academic, all around the bed of one patient with all our heart and intent on getting the best for that patient. And that's how we were trained. But now, do we have ward rounds? Patient seen in an ICU bed. Nurse, patient's not even greeted. Charts, please. Was this issued? Do the following batch of tests, please. Get radiology involved here. He's got a rash. Okay, let's have a look at the rash. Oh, get a dermatologist in. Meanwhile, I, the healthcare practitioner, have treated that rash for years. What's the point of getting a dermatologist in when you haven't bothered to read the letter that I wrote to you explaining that he happens to have a rash right now? Shocking.
So why is there this detachment and then such a faith in that as a belief? And then why do you think where that has failed for people, they've sought out less or more taboo treatments?
Okay. I believe that from a medical student being graduated, having gone through graduation school, going into the internship and their undergraduate, postgraduate programs, I believe that the first thing that happens is the doctor is elevated to a position of importance, of professionalism, of respect, of pride. I think arrogance tends to set in as well. And it's not encouraged to actually go into family medicine much these days. I think you do your rotations between the various disciplines through your early postgraduate years. And then it's quite soon after that you're encouraged to go into a speciality. And family medicine becomes, for those who have chosen not to go into a speciality, but also perhaps that's their passion, that's their love. So what happens is the specialist is trained in the speciality and takes onus and responsibility of just treating the speciality and less emphasis on the general holistic approach. So although they're trained, like a dermatologist would be trained about, for example, not only the skin, but the causes of disease, which could be inside and expressing themselves outside in the body, lost are the influences and the effects of. You're gonna stop him? I think he must go to the dining room. Yeah, I just lost a bit of concentration there. Sorry, Gary. I'm gonna stop. So, very interesting thought is how Western medicine's failed us. Obviously, I'm a Western medicine practitioner, but it's failed us in so many ways. When you start to think about the whole person. The person comes to a consultation to a doctor and it's simply the condition and treat the condition. And this is the evidence and that's the prescribing medicine that works. And you need to almost like dictatorially, if it's say, for example, depression, there's this coldness about, tell me about your depression. How did you become depressed? What were your triggers? What were your examples of depression? How are you feeling? And then there's this repetition of these symptoms of depression and words like anhedonia and despondency and despair and inability. All that jargon is spoken through. The patient is simply prescribed an antidepressant, not really told to go and pull yourself together, but basically implied, look, here's an antidepressant, it's a chemical, side effects are explained, the management and the expectation is explained, and they are then referred to a psychologist. And the psychologist will then take them along a little journey of explaining depression, treating depression, but the compliance is not there. They're not encouraged to actually look at, this is where Western medicine sincerely failed us, is what are the triggers and the causes of your depression? Did we ever really go through that past trauma, which was actually your ruptured appendix, or your divorce, or your separation, or your hijacking? When do we ever evolve that and discuss that and bring that into the importance of you're sick, you're depressed because of all these triggers that have taken place in your life? And none of them have really, people don't care for that. But that's depression. Western medicine also fails us in areas where we don't think of the holistic nature of how we should live in a healthy way. How do you wake up in the morning? How do you bounce out of bed? What's your routine? What's your ritual? Are you checking cell phone time? Are you caring for your nutrition? Are you spending time with yourself, quality? Are you meditating? Or are you chasing time, chasing traffic, chasing appointments? And no one really cares for that, but it's taken for granted that that's life. Western medicine takes that into consideration, accepts it, but doesn't do anything about it. They don't embrace the fact that a healthy night's sleep is really important to recover not only your physical body and the effects of all the hormones that actually are released during your body, the fact that melatonin is an essential hormone that's produced by the pineal gland, which helps you with defragmenting your brain. But what do you do when you wake up? How can melatonin enhance your health in ways of wellness, better wellness? And we could describe many ways in which we could biohack the effect of melatonin, for example. No one thinks about that. A hypnotic is prescribed. You're told that it's 3 months max. 10 years later, the patient's still on the hypnotic. That's Western medicine. It's failed us. An antidepressant is prescribed. We're told that you should go into remission within 6 weeks to 8 weeks. 6 years later, they still prescribe the same medicine. Repeat. The patients are phoned in for their repetition, their repeat consultations prescription. They should be asked to come in. They should be reevaluated. They're not. They're not fully evaluated. No time is given to their condition. They re-prescribe the same medicines. And no one goes to the trouble of actually looking at alternative ways of getting them off medication and onto natural ways of healing. I give an example of a diabetic, an obese diabetic that came to me in November last year. I'll give you the day. It's 23rd of November, and I saw him. I realized he was diabetic. I tested him, he was diabetic, and I said, no, we need to embark on a lifestyle program, and this is what it's going to involve. Well, I had buy-in from him because he agreed that we needed to do something about it because he didn't want his health insurance loaded. He didn't want his insurance policies loaded. He didn't want to die, premature death. He knew his family was at stake, his risk was at stake, his career was at stake. The results I got 23rd of November till the 23rd of January, 23 kgs, loss of weight. How was that? What medicines did I give him? Well, there were some herbal things. It was a good old conversation. It was an encouragement, and you know what? He did the rest. He just cut out the pasta and the pizza. He was Italian. How hard was that? Straight talk, love, compassion, kindness. Western medicine fails us in communication. Western medicine fails us in the way that we explain things to our patients. That we just reach for the prescription pad and we write up the script. And we never really explain the devastating effects that medicine might have on long-term down the line. The organ failure, the kidney, renal implications, the side effects, the cost and involvement, and no one bothers to embrace the holistic aspects of how your body can heal naturally, organically, in a creative way, if you just guide it, integratively, with people who are specialists in healthcare that are not necessarily with MBCHB or postgraduate medical degree behind them. Wellness practitioners have a wealth of knowledge that introduce amazing results, possibly even better than a traditional Western medicine practitioner who gets a result. Why is the wellness practitioner, the nutritionist, the person who introduces herbal medicine, or the meditation, holistic person who does relaxation therapy, the person who designs a healthy environment of how to live, how your house should be, air, light, your environment. That's never really taken into consideration. There's the whole aspect of, and for me it was a personal one, of health ergonomics. How do I sit at my desk? Is this desk healthy for me? Or is it going to cause neck and back problems? Should we do a desk adjustment of my desk? Should I get a standing desk? No one even speaks about that. They say, you've got a spinal disc problem. If this and this and this doesn't happen, if it's failed 3 months of failed conservative treatment, you're possibly going to go for a laminectomy. And no one bothers to say, raise your desk height, give yourself a standing desk, and watch the way you bend and lift. Watch the way that you drive. Ergonomics are forgotten. And that's simple. That's not even Western medicine or Eastern medicine. That's just basic logic. But Eastern medicine has got so much more to offer. Then there's years and years of traditions that are lost. The art, the archaic ways, the ancient ways. There's so much of a wealth of knowledge there that Western practitioners wouldn't even bother to read because it's not evidence-based. Yet there's millennia of Eastern healthcare practitioners throughout traditional communities, throughout the world, and in remote places of the world, where disease is not nearly as prevalent as in the Western world. We've failed ourselves horribly by forgetting many of the most amazing healing techniques. They're frowned upon, they're forgotten, they're discarded, and replaced by, this is the way it's done, in a very impersonal, perhaps a judgmental way, perhaps it's shameful, it's just wrong. It's just really wrong. It's wrong. It's really wrong. People suffer. We don't do it right. That's what makes us who we are. And if I can relate to a patient who's been through a trauma and they've come in for their health check, for their diabetes prescription, their hypertensive medication, and I know what they've been through, and I don't care or ask or bother to see the holistic effect that it's had on them, I've missed my calling as a healthcare practitioner. Just the divorce of the humanity aspect and the love for treating individuals and humans as who they really are. Love, care, empathy, compassion, kindness. Laughter is a medicine. I mean, let's just not even go into Eastern medicine. Laughter is a medicine. Listen to a video clip. See something funny. Dance. Stroke an animal. See a beautiful sunset. Watch a whale in the ocean. See a baby being born. See a little animal, a flower. Nature. We heal in ways way beyond what Western medicine even dares to suggest. Let me suggest to you that as a patient that you'd find great delight in looking at your cat play with toys, and that your headache might go and your fatigue might lift, and doing something as simple as that. I think part of redesigning our lives is integrating health, wellness, nutrition, spirituality, our emotions. Something. Okay. Now that, okay. I don't think I've done enough of the Eastern Western medicine. Okay.
But I would also love to film in Costa Rica.
Versus alternative care. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whether you want to, it doesn't have to be woven into one question. One
Mm.
is why.
How's me getting emotional there?
I didn't actually.
I think what I found a tragedy really is that we see a patient come in and they have great need and they've not shifted in their health condition, their chronic condition for years. And it's time that they did, but maybe they come and present after a sequence of worsening of their condition, deterioration of their kidney function, for example, an increase in their prescribing of their diabetes medication. And it's time that they changed, but they don't know how to. And us as Western practitioners would simply prescribe, simply follow up and say, see the dietitian, get walking, get some more fresh air, sleep well. But it's just not cutting it. So what I find to be the genuine, authentic approach is to get on the level of the patient who's got the chronic condition, who's got the illness, and just ask them a simple question. Are you battling with this? How can we possibly make this better? Because if we don't do anything about it, I'm going to see you another year and another year. And when is it going to be that we're going to have these complications? And it's almost like, I think we mustn't wait as Western practitioners for the student to present to the master when the student's ready. The master, we're not the masters, but we're equipped and knowledgeable and professional with our understanding of medicine to then embrace natural ways of getting the patient buy-in, get them responsible, to get them in a form of health coaching and mentorship, a way of introducing motivation to agree to change. And that only really comes with design of a lifestyle. And sometimes it takes a little bit of a shock to actually realize that there's been a rapid deterioration in your blood markers, and this is not good. Or the shock of a friend or colleague who's your age, who's just dropped down dead for a heart attack. What am I going to do about it? So they come in with fear, they come in with a readiness, with perplexion and anxiety about what must I do, how must I change? They start asking the right questions, but it's up to us to give them those answers back and say, come, let's walk a journey now. This is about you becoming responsible for your health and how we're going to do it. It's almost like responsible health, stewardship. Let's get buy-in. Let's journey together. How, doctor? How am I going to do it? Don't worry. I'm going to integrate you and lead you into some amazingly qualified and professional, well-informed practitioners, health care providers that will stand alongside you and introduce you to redesign your life. No one wants to redesign their lives. No one knows it's even necessary. People don't even think that there is such a thing as a way to design your life. People have asked me, Ryall, how have you got into this? How have you emerged into a field of medicine where you're integrating many aspects of health, care and practice and healing in so many different ways? Functional medicine, integrative medicine. Well, who are you? What do you call yourself? And I just said it once. I laughed. I suppose I'm a wellness architect. And they laughed. And they said, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, let's design a new life. I'm sick of the days of all this shit that's happened to me. I can edit that out if we need to. I've had enough. And I don't want to live in this way of my body aging and deteriorating when I could be different. How do I do it? When you've got somebody who asks those questions, it's up to us to show them how. And that's where medicine differs. You get holistic practitioners who will say, and they might not quite know how or who to turn to or who to refer to, so they'll avoid the question and they'll not give them the answer. And that's a shame. Even if I don't know the answer, as a healthcare practitioner, I acknowledge that I don't, but I think I will find out who does. And then it's up to you and I to walk this journey together. Why don't you do some research on, let's talk about insomnia, for example. You're addicted to these sleeping tablets. How are we going to get you off them? Well, here's some podcasts, here's some clips. You go through working ways of when you go to sleep, how you design your life. How do you design your day? And what do you do if you are buzzing at the end of the day with thoughts and overactivity and busyness? How do you get into a state of tranquility in a natural way? How do you go to sleep on time without this paralysis of overanalysis and thoughts from the drum of the day and of just the hecticness of the pace of life that we're in, which is all pretty gutting the way that we really talk about our days. But how do we learn to sleep? Well, let's research it ourselves and let's work this journey together. Let's do the sleeping tablets. We'll do it for 3 months. We'll get you through this crisis, but then let's work ways of doing it naturally. It's easier to simply prescribe a prescription medication and not talk about the other natural ways, such as melatonin, meditation, alcohol, tech, too much tech, Wi-Fi, interference with our sleep patterns. There's so many ways of learning to sleep than just taking a pill, which is the easy way out. It's the modern day life that we live. It's just easy. It's made far too easy. So there's no buy-in from ourselves. There's no involvement from ourselves. We cop out of, it's too much discipline. It's too much of an effort. But that's explained to us in a way of there are no solutions. But when you offered hope that there is a solution, there's a way you can do this, and we can teach you these ways. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Really? Yeah, I did it. How did you do it? Tell me how. And have dialogues like that, where people can speak their stories and tell their successes and see the transition and changes that have taken place in their lives. I'm one such story. I wouldn't be doing this if I hadn't had the life lessons and learned the experiences of how to evolve my health and how to redesign my lifestyles to become the person that I am right now. Every single one of the prescriptions that I had to take, the medicines that I had to have to cope with the side effects and the changes of this to that to the next, every single one of the traumas that I had to experience was worth it. Every one of them was worth it to get to the point where I am now. Not in full authority, but better informed, and certainly a lot better towards holistic health than I was. This journey has served me well. I really do believe.
What are your thoughts on breathwork and breathwork being in terms of either Wim Hof, holotropic, shamanic, noticing your breath for meditation? So that's where the meditation ties in terms of possibly if we look now at overcoming things like anxiety, addiction, grief. So just your views as the power of your breath, and maybe where we sometimes overlook that by smoking or not quite.
Yeah, breath work. First thing that happens in your existence is you take a breath. The last thing, you breathe out. So breath, air is life. I've never thought of breath work, but I remember one of our professors telling us that if the patient's hypertensive, you get this thing called the white coat syndrome, where they're anxious and so their blood pressure goes up. Just get them to calm down, take a breath, and their blood pressure will drop. Well, isn't that true? Just yesterday, I had someone come in, blood pressure 168 over 110. I said, listen, just calm down, let me show you how to breathe. So I explained to them a simple method of quick breaths in, long breaths out, hold. There's very many methods of breathing, but I just explained a quick way. In, long out, hold. In, long out, hold. And so you increase the time. Well, after 3 or 4 breaths, that person's blood pressure is back to normal. So it works. But breath work has so much more than just calming yourself in a situation. I know my personal trainer was in a war situation, and he explained to me that they're trained as Marines, that they're in a combat situation, and it's life and death. If they don't know where the sniper is, and they are in that stressed state, adrenaline is pumping, but if you are anxious, you're going to miss it, and you're going to be killed. So they're trained a very simple method. There's many methods that can be explained, but it's a quick, simple thing that animals do. It's your intuition and instinct kicks in, and with just the out breath, it does something to your brain waves. It calms your entire body down. Your adrenals settle. So there's a magnificent orchestra of neurological, physiological processes that take place between the brain, the gut, the heart, just with breathing, the vagus nerve. The body's a fascinating organ in the way that we can breathe. I couldn't understand breath work. It took me a long time to do that because I'm a pretty energetic, active person. I'm on the go the whole time. It's very hard for me to sit still. And when a person's on the go, they're often rushing and breathing. And so as anxiety kicks in, we tend to pant and puff and never really breathe out. But there are many, many practitioners in the world, Wim Hof being one, teaching us how to breathe. And you can go and study Wim Hof. There's more than enough information about Wim. I learned breath work a lot through meditation. I think it's hard to meditate, especially if you have a busy mind. And it took me probably about 2.5 years of really, really engaging in this. Fortunately, I signed up with a group, Mind Valley in Kuala Lumpur, and I learned the art of meditation through a simple, I think I played it about 15 to 20 times before I got it, the 6-phase guided meditation. Meditation 101 by Vishen Lakiaki at Mind Valley. That was one of my ways. But that happened where I literally played it, 18 minutes, 6 phases each, and I got myself in that calm state. And at the end of the meditation, it was obvious my breathing was calmer. And so he talks you through that. Virtually all meditation, guided meditation techniques, take a deep breath, position yourself, calm your body, relax yourself. And as you do that and as you breathe calmly, so your whole body starts to relax. And only when that happens are your adrenal glands settled, your anxiety settles, your body relaxes, does the brain come alive. And that can allow you to invite the meditative practices and techniques in where suddenly now, when you're empty, when you're less, when you're nothing, you're open as a vessel to be filled. And that's when spirituality comes in. That's when one starts to discover the greatest ideas happen when you're meditating. If you don't know how to meditate, let me say to you, why is it for a man when he's in the shower that he gets that idea? Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. No cell phone, no one to interrupt him. It comes to you because you're quiet, you're calm, and maybe breathing. Another way is in the shower, if you're really, really anxious, I've used this example to many of my patients, is just if you've had it and you just are breathing fast and you're anxious, have a cold shower. Plunge into some iced water. Get your head in the cold. What am I doing? I'm breathing. Out. Calms you down. You just demonstrate it. You see it. It happens. There are many other practices where rituals are played, shamanic practices. There are people who will gather in crowds and in groups where they will teach you how to breathe. As I say, it took me 2.5 years to meditate, and I still don't have it. My coach, my physical coach, trainer, keeps on telling me, Ryall, when you do your reps, you're not breathing right. He says, come on the push, breathe out. So he says, it's 1, 2, 3. It's like, I'm still not doing it right. 4 verses, 1, 2, 3, 4. Waste of energy, waste of physical strain on your body, your mind. Empty yourself, breathe. Less is more. And I'm by far an expert on breath work. But do I recommend breath work? Yes, because I've seen the results of what it does. It's a very, very big topic that needs to be explored, and I believe integratively we should embrace people that are experts on this field of breathing. And there's a great spirituality to breathing as well. People believe in spiritual methods that Christians believe that the Holy Spirit is like a breath. There's a wind that flows. Ancient traditions use the sound of leaves and wind and charms and movement, sound, breath. It's a spirituality behind that as well. I believe that your real power comes in when you breathe correctly and when you slow yourself down. It's one very, very natural and quick and easy way to just ground yourself. Grounding yourself, breathe. You're up in the air, you're all over the place, you're stressed out, you don't know how to cope with the day, go into the toilet and breathe, quieten yourself and just get it. Lots to talk about with breath work, lots to say. You know? I think my journey into full wellness, and I'm not even there yet, started many years ago, but it's been definitely triggered by having been a victim of 7 major spinal surgeries. Started in my early 40s, and really as a result of not adequate fitness and core strength and muscle strength, and being a very busy practitioner in a busy business, poor posture, position, bending, lifting, rushing, not enough recreation, exercise. Had my first spinal surgery, prolapsed disc, when I was 44. It was an experimental new technique that was used. The type of fusion that was done allowed flexibility in my joints. But 3 months later, the disc prolapsed again, so I had to go in for the second review. And 3 months later, it happened again. So that was 3 surgeries, major spinal surgeries, in a year. Well, you can imagine what that did to me, to my life, to my marriage, to my practice. It pretty much gutted me. And certainly, surgery, neurosurgery, orthopedic surgery at the time of the day didn't serve me well. But I did what I needed to at the time, and that was biokinetics, rehabilitation, physiotherapy, lifestyle modification, changes whatever I could, and I carried on with my life. But no one really stood alongside me and said, Ryall, you need to do these things. You've got a degenerative spine. They might have been resulted from injuries, but it could happen again. And no one said to me then that if my back had played up, if I didn't correct my posture, my neck would also play up. And the neck was the next one. So I can fast track this, but basically neck, then back, then neck again. So it ended up being 7. God help a person who's had 7 major spinal surgeries. And when it came to number 7, I'd realized that my journey through pain, suffering, muscle loss, weakness, was dropping things with my hand, I'd lost triceps function, I'd got numbness down my leg. There were problems. And in order for me to get back on my feet and to be a survivor of this, not just a succumber to 7 spinal surgeries and maybe a victim of trauma, and a sentence to a life of pretty miserable pain and suffering. But no, I refused. And so 18 months before, I started to experiment on myself. And the journey to wellness was one of learn certain practices, adapt your life, eat better, stop smoking, for example, because smoking cigarettes is very, very dangerous for your discs. Your discs age and disease very quickly in your spine if you smoke. So there was the whole process of oxidative stress, of diet, of lifestyle, adjusting my posture, my position. Don't do stupid things. Don't play the wrong sport. Adapt yourself. And when it came to the last final hurdle, it was the only way I could survive was to work, still an 8-hour day. There was prescription medication, there was pain medication, there was strong painkillers, and fortunately there was marijuana capsules, which were one of the best pain relievers and it's known for neuropathic pain. It's proven. But I decided that before I went into my last 7th spinal surgery, which was 4 foraminotomies of my neck, where they drill the holes out, where the nerve is encroaching on the spine, the bone is encroaching on the nerves. And we can show you MRI scans to show you. It was just shocking. And I was losing function. So it had to be freed, otherwise I would lose function and if it functions lost completely, then you literally lose your function. It's taken me now 2.5 years to get certain motor function back. But instead of going at full pace, as doctors do, until the 11th hour, finish my list of patients on a Wednesday midday, check myself to hospital on the Wednesday evening and go into the surgery on the Thursday, I decided to take a 3-week, forward break. And my wife and I decided to book a trip to Provence in France, and we spent 3 weeks preparing myself for my surgery by having beautiful moments, special nature, food, love, comfort, art, appreciation of beautiful environment, and resting my soul into a position of readiness to go into this brutal trauma. Came back, and I was ready. When I went through the operation, I knew before going into it that I would come out with pain, but I knew that the journey through this was going to be the tipping point in my career and the journey towards my understanding of true wellness. And how does a person ever recover? Western medicine had failed me, surgeries had failed me, and no one was there. It's lonely being the doctor. Doctor, heal thyself, people say. No one was really there for me. I had to do it myself. And I knew that there was a greater purpose and a reason for me to go through this and to learn and teach others. So I knew that the time that I would use in recovery, which was 6 weeks of lying on my back, walking in the garden, rehabilitating myself, and getting a physical, spiritual, emotional nourishment, which was well needed after years and years and years of trauma. Career trauma, marital trauma, financial trauma. I could go on and on and on. But if you can imagine one trauma affecting a person in all these ways, many were affecting me. So when I went into the operation, I was expecting a perfect result, and I came out and it was a perfect result. But the recovery was a bitter disappointment. I came out, I was not sent to ICU, I was sent to a general ward. After having a neck cut that long, my neck was supposed to be in a neutral position. I was sent out on a pillow like this. The moment I woke up, which was now in the passage, I said, "Nurse, take this pillow from me now, please." "Oh, yes, it's not meant to be there. I'm in pain. It's making it worse." And just a simple plea of, I'm not a difficult person, but if I am in pain, I'm going to need a lot of your support, so please stand by me. I need help. I got none of it. I wasn't allowed a pain prescription, although it was written up, because I hadn't eaten, because I got back into the ward at 8 o'clock at night, not having eaten from the previous night, 8 o'clock. And in order to give myself medication, I had to eat first, otherwise I could vomit. And if I had vomit on an empty stomach, it could completely disrupt the surgery and the outcome. No ways could I possibly go through that. My bell and light and fell down by the side of my bed. I was unable to pick that up, so I couldn't call for the nurse. Eventually, at midnight, I was offered some juice. After the juice, I then was allowed to be given something, but it was intravenous paracetamol, which wasn't going to do anything for me. The tragedy was that I actually had my pain medicines in my little bag next to me in the bed, but I couldn't reach for it. No one was there to help me. No one was there to give it to me. As a prescribing healthcare practitioner, as a doctor, knew what was necessary, knew what was prescribed. Alone, I was tossed a sponge to bed bath myself. There was an attitude from nursing that was deplorable. After 48 hours, I eventually discharged myself out of the hospital. Better to come home, be in my own environment. My wife's a nurse. I know what to do. I've got medication, and I can deal with it myself. But if I take myself back to my days of study in undergraduate years, 30 years prior, when nursing was good, the patient came first. It was a profession. It was a calling. It wasn't just a job. You weren't just there to do stuff. You were there to feel and care for the person. There was empathy. I saw none of that, experienced none of that. So I journaled a lot, and I discovered a lot of, through meditation and through quietness and through deep contemplation and a lot of research, it was the first time in a long time that I'd been able to feast my mind on healthy, environmental, alternative, integrative ways of getting better. And I vowed that the trauma that I'd been through, which was not one surgery, believe me, it was 7, but it was what led up to the surgery. It was the loss, it was the grief, it was the post-traumatic stress. And don't think that I was not also a victim of post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, pain. I wasn't addicted to stuff, but man, I could have been. Marital strain, financial strain, loss in my practice, the loss to my patients, the loss just not being there, family stress like you can't believe. I vowed that I would, at that stage, design a lifestyle and design a way, a comprehensive way, where I felt that people could start to live and recover and learn the lifestyle of how to thrive. Thriving I was not. Existing I was. A tragedy that I will not want on anybody ever again. But the journey to wellness and the journey to exceptional health, where people will look at me now and not believe what's happened, what transformation has taken place, how I've purposefully and intentionally repaired my muscles, repaired my flexibility from inflexibility, restored my health, my physiology, my anatomy, my weight, my mind, my career, my marriage, my finances, my belief in humanity, from one of, you failed me, to one of, let's help you not fail others. And a journey of, we got to do this. And I don't regret a moment of the pain and suffering, because what really matters is my calling to help others through pain and suffering. And I see it, and we see it in everyday life. It's a very interesting thought, is how do we as human beings really, really live an optimum life? And what is an optimum life? And so this idea came to me of the science of human thriving. How do we thrive? And we've heard of property giants saying, live, work, play in a place. That's great. But how do we thrive in our bodies? By living a physical life in a physical body, but we are spiritual beings with emotions, feelings, heart, mind. But we also have a career. We also have a family. We have love. We have sex. We have finances. These are all aspects of health that we don't even think are important. So we could take an example of your built environment. If you're in a suburb where there's a lot of noise, where there's a lot of security problems, where there's a lot of sirens, where there's you're surrounded by electric fences or burglar bars, and you have to protect yourself. Fear comes in. That's not certainly a healthy environment to live in. So we forget that your environment is very, very important in designing your environment. Would you live in that suburb? Would you choose for your daughter to live, for example, in a complex estate, but there's a cell phone tower that's going to be 5G right next to them? And you know that there are real problems with 5G and radiation to the young developing brain, and she's pregnant. So one forgets that health embraces everything. And I've actually identified 12 pillars of health, of which physical health is only one. So we could expand on them in time to come, but physical health is just simply your body, your anatomy, your physiology, what makes it work, the stuff that we know, the stuff that people go to a Western doctor or a natural health practitioner for. But it also, health involves, how do you sleep? What's your quality? There's such a thing as sleep hygiene. What's hygienic sleep? There were studies done comparing 7.5 hours sleep versus 8.5 hours sleep. And the 7.5 hours sleep were 30% less productive in the workplace than the 8.5 hour sleepers. And they found that about 8 is pretty much average. 30% less in the workplace, productive. And there were scientific experiments that were done like this. We forget that there are very, very natural but very powerful forces around us as human beings that influence our health. How do we thrive? There's your emotions. We know that your emotions, if you're sick, if you're stressed, your emotions make you sick. If stress makes you sick, unstress makes you better. There are known ways and methods of healing yourself through emotional support. Get rid of the toxic people in your life and feel free to move on. So trauma, all that goes with psychological trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, ways of thinking, personality issues, the stresses that we endure on an everyday life. Your emotional health is very important. Spiritual health, spirituality. If we're not healthy as spirits and we're not nourished with the right spiritual food, We're going to starve. And what if you fed toxic spiritual food from people who, you get these people called, they just suck everything out of you, energetically, spiritually. I've called them energy vampires. They deplete you, they drain you spiritually, you feel buggered. Spirituality is very important because we actualize our spiritual beings. And if we have a healthy spirit, healthy body, healthy mind, we become healthy beings. And developing spirituality is a very, very important part of developing your whole holistic health as a person. And then there's your relational health. So there's a pillar of health that's your spouse, your partner, your life partner. Sexuality, we know about health sex. We know about the importance of the problems in sexual health, identifying them. And it's only been in the last latter couple of decades that we've been able to actually become outspoken about this. But when I speak to a man in my practice about shame, for example, he'd rather die than admit to his friend that he's shameful about what's happening. And so there's this pretense and this guarding that takes place. And the male-female difference and the understanding and the guilt and the shame and the complexity of sexuality is very, very important. Female, female, male, male, whatever it might be, the exploration, the days that we're in at the moment are very challenging. But part of sex and health and relationships is also family and your family time and your interaction between your children and yourself, your in-laws. When you connected to a partner, a life partner, you're also connected to the extended family. And maybe you don't really choose that person, and maybe you don't really like that person, but it's like part of the package, you know? And is that healthy for you or not? And some marriages have broken, some relationships have fractured and fragmented as a result of unhealthy partners, toxic in-laws, whatever you want to call them. Get rid of these people from your life and you'll be better. We also get the blended families. The blended families and the ways of days gone by that a family was considered to be only this sort of way and the prescriptive ways of family. And yet blended families very, very often are one of the most robust and healthy families. And as long as there's joy and laughter in families and there's enlightenment and happiness and humor and the way that we discipline, the way that we raise our children, the interaction of multi-generational families, how there's pros and cons to that. Certain cultures, there's subduing of the young bride and the patriarchs and the matriarchs that dominate. And in some younger families, it's let's get away from all this, live independent lives. Others want extended families for support. People don't have families. Families sometimes don't exist. Familyless people, fatherless people, people who never mothered, loved, cared for. It's part of health. Your career is part of your health. You can have a healthy career. You can have a career that's just a job. It's just there by default. You got into it. You never really wanted it, but that doesn't really fulfill you. It's certainly not ticking the boxes of what your gifting is and where your passions lie. And maybe you're finding it difficult to express yourself fully in that career. But the realization of that and the understanding of this career is not serving me that well is part of your journey and evolution to becoming and refining, researching, seeking the ideal career. And it might be all these stepping stones that we go through. And you might have somebody that their health is affected by a career conflict and maybe in a relationship, and a boss, orderly, employer-employee relationship that's in conflict, and we have to deal with that. And that might awaken a person to the core values in their career, and that core values in their career are not necessarily a salary package, the time off, but could be things like the challenge, the intelligence that's actually given to them, the culture and environment of the people around them. Can they identify, are they part of a tribe? Are they part of this organization? There are many values that you can bring into a career. So there is such a thing as healthy careers. Careers are also, for example, in my career as a medical practitioner, I've tried to create and design a healthy environment in which I work, where people walk in and it's my home. It's like my waiting room is my lounge. My office is like my special space. So the design of an office is more than just get a decorator in. I spent a long time researching how to set my office space up. And I spent a long time meditating and waiting beforehand so that every person that would ever in future walk into my space would be touched through healing. And it's true, it happens. There's things about ergonomics in the workplace that are very, very important. There's things about noise, clutter, Wi-Fi, open desk, closed desks, open spaces, closed spaces, time off, exercise, whether you can have space and time for that. And there's a lot of advancements in career and establishments and organizations that are actually embracing a holistic, healthy way of working. There's your financial health. I'm not an expert on most of these things, but by all means, if somebody raises issues that have created an emotional trauma or a depression or post-traumatic stress disorder that might have led them into a situation of drug dependency on benzos or even harder line drugs as a result of their trauma, unless we embrace the financial, the impact of the financial destitution or the loss, we're not incorporating the holistic wellness of the person. And so there are people that are well equipped and qualified to come alongside you and assist you with your budget and your planning and your spending and your banking and your future investments. That's all part of your health, is your financial health. And trust me, in men and women, whoever's the breadwoman, the breadwinner, whoever is that person, if the money is not in the bank, it stresses you out tremendously. And we don't realize what an impact that does to us, how just on your hormones, on your body, on your sleep, on your life. It's integratively connected, your financial wellness, to almost every aspect of your life. Take, for example, law and governance. That's another pillar of health. So law and governance might be the tax system, the laws that are put in by your local municipalities and councils and your government, how you're supposed to operate, how you're supposed to live, how your garbage is thrown out, and what your laws are regarding homeless people, and what's taken care of, what's not taken care of. How are the values and the ethics and the morals of the place that I live? Do I subscribe to a set of beliefs, or am I led to be a victim of a belief system, of a set of beliefs that I never designed in the first place and I don't buy into? So if your law and governance is in conflict, your morals, your ethics, your values, it's going to affect your health. And people don't think of health in a holistic way, of integrating. So wouldn't it be wonderful if the health minister would be able to speak to all the other ministers and say, well, if the energy minister is, and the minister of arts and creation and culture is not introducing healthy ways of art, of introduction of media, of culture, which can, if they're healthy, they're good. If they're not healthy, they're bad for you. And if the health minister could look at that as being an aspect of your health, in other words, fun, humor, comic, balanced, fair reporting and media is an aspect of your health, if the health minister could speak to the president and say these all need to introduce, wouldn't we have a better tribe, people that we belong to, that we connect to? That's thriving, a balance of living. There's so many more.